What's up, Godzilla fans? Today on the 20th Godzilla dissection, woo! We are almost there, guys. Just 10 more after this, so I complete the whole series. I am doing one of my favorite Godzilla movies of all freaking time. I am doing Godzilla vs. MechaGodzilla, the 1993 film. Although I guess people in America mostly know it as Godzilla vs. MechaGodzilla 2, which is very confusing, I bet, to a lot of people. I just really bet it is. But like I was saying, this movie is one of the ones that's on my top 10 of the Godzilla franchise. It's one of those ones that will never get pushed off. It was so well done. It's one of the best Godzilla films ever. Definitely one of the best of the Heisei era, which is a gold mine for Godzilla. And yeah, this film was freaking great. It's just one of the best Godzilla movies I've ever seen, and I watch this one all the time. It's just fantastic. Fucking love it. Fucking love this movie. It's a shame that the same effort that was put in this movie cannot be put into Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla would come out after this movie. But you know what? I just settled that this is still, for me, one of the highlights of the freaking entire franchise. The basic story, I guess I should go into, because it's awesome because the movie does a whole lot new, but it also does take a little bit from the old. And when I say to the old, it takes the story, it takes one of the Godzilla films that kind of sucked, but honestly it wasn't that bad. I'm speaking of Son of Godzilla, but it's a debate for another time, which I'll do probably very soon. But it takes elements from that Godzilla movie of all movies, puts into this one, and we finally get to see a proper baby Godzilla while also redoing the origins and relationship of Rodan and MechaGodzilla to Godzilla and to humanity. And I'll go into that as I talk about the monsters. But basically the story is that there's a nuclear wasteland island, a donut island, and humans go there. They find an egg, of all things, which is protected by Rodan, which is pretty clever. They explain it. It's a parasite egg, which is a real-life phenomenon where a bird will lay its egg in a nest of a bird of another species, and then from there the parent birds are none the wiser, so they take care of this foreign egg. It's very clever. To me, I like the writing. They pulled a lot from real life, too. I mean, not to get off track, but also the Godzilla's whole thing about the second brain, quote-unquote, which is really just a bundle of nerves to help this ginormous body move. That is yet again another real-life phenomenon. We found out about big dinosaurs like Brachiosaurus and Stegosaurus, where they had a second brain, quote-unquote, located in their hip area, which is really just a big bundle of nerves to help move a body that big. That was Toho really paying attention to the writing with that. And I definitely got to give credit to Wataru Mimura. Wataru Mimura's written a lot of good stuff for Godzilla. And this is definitely one of his best scripts that he ever wrote for the franchise. Really is. Excuse me, but getting back to the story, this movie, the whole point of it was that once Godzilla finds out about the egg, he shows up, but then they take the egg back, and they want to study baby Godzilla because they think they'll find out weaknesses about Godzilla, which they eventually do. They find out about like I said, the spinal brain, and they use their newly created MechaGodzilla to freaking, target this weakness, and at least a bunch of epic action scenes and conflicts between Godzilla, Rodan, and MechaGodzilla, and the Japanese Self-Defense Force, and at least just leads to basically an all-out brawl that covers several days and nights of failed missions and just so much going on in the story. It's great. It should be noted, this is also the first movie where there was tension involving Megumi Odaka and Godzilla. Megumi Odaka, who people should know by now, played Miki Sagusa, the popular psychic, who up to this point in the series had not really been a major character, but she was a consistent character. I mean, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah and Godzilla vs. Mothra, Godzilla Bellante, she didn't have a relationship with Godzilla. She just was kind of there as an asset. Not saying she wasn't important, but she was an asset, not really emotionally connected to Godzilla. This is the first time we see it. Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla would once again overdo this, and then Godzilla vs. Destroy would once again bring it back to its normal levels and acceptable levels, and it was really great. I should definitely go into the cast. To me, the human story, this is really freaking good. This is one of the first Godzilla movies since the Showa era that had. Well, I don't say since Showa era. Let me put it this way: it's one of the few Godzilla movies that had a really good human story where they had tension, they had laughs, they had really interesting characters, which is kind of, I guess I'd say, a highlight of the Heisei era. And it's something they can improve upon with each movie. Godzilla Bellante did really good with it. Return of Godzilla did really good with it. Godzilla King Ghidorah had an interesting story, not necessarily interesting human characters, but that was, that worked. Godzilla's Mothra had interesting human characters because it had a family dynamic. And then here we have the viewpoint, strangely enough, when you think about it, of soldiers, scientists as well, but soldiers as well, about fighting Godzilla. And it's just great. It's great. We needed a lot more of this in movies. Well, we see it in the Millennium series, but it's not done the same way to me. But I'll get into that. Like I said, one of the main characters, I guess you'd say, is Mashiro Takashima, who plays Kazuma. He's great. We have Ryoko Sano as Azusa, the scientist, who mainly gets really attached to Baby Godzilla. Her story with Baby is pretty central to the story. I already covered. We have Megumi Odaka, who's freaking great. This movie also introduced Akira Nako as General Aso. General Aso would appear in the remaining Heisei films, and he would also make appearances throughout the Millennium series, most notably as the Prime Minister in the Kiru films, and he would have a brief cameo in Godzilla Final Wars. I always loved Akira Nako in the movies. He had such a strong presence. It was just awesome. I loved him as General Aso. He was freaking good. And of course we have Kenji Sahara appearing in the movie as a scientist character. That was great. That was freaking great. The human characters, like I said, they do really well. They give them all emotional connections, whether it be with Godzilla himself, Baby Godzilla, the main, who's almost comical because he's kind of an idiot in a lot of ways, Kazuma. But Kazuma was a great character because of that, though. I mean, he fucked up here and there, but he was an interesting character. Not something you really see it often in the Godzilla franchise, honestly. Usually the male lead is like, stern, calm, collected, something you see in Godzilla's Bellante. But he was more of the cowardly type, never really liked fighting at all, and is kind of forced into it. We see him develop a little bit as he trains to fight harder and gets more involved with the actual G-Force. Oh, so you might wonder what is G-Force. I mean, when you think about this movie changes a whole lot. Because up until this time, there was no actual, before we had Japanese military, but then this movie established that we have the UN GCC, the United Nations Godzilla Countermeasures Center, which is basically a multinational coalition of people who fight against Godzilla. So that's why in this movie, we also see a few people of other nationalities. Most notably, there is, I believe, I don't want to say British, but we do have a white Caucasian actress as part of the MechaGodzilla crew, which to me was interesting. Although not necessarily a big, detail, but it was there and I like to bring it up. Again, he's a member of the G-Force. It's the first time in the franchise we had that at the time, although it would become very popular in the Millennium series. This is the first time it was brought up in the Godzilla franchise up to this point, especially in the show where it brought up no mention of special forces who were dedicated to fighting monsters, namely Godzilla. It also brought up a very interesting human story because, there was just so much going on with the characters. But like I was saying, the main thing I like about this movie is that the human characters are funny. There's a lot of emotion in the story, and also, which is quite awesome, and something we don't see enough of in the later Godzilla movies to this day. We saw a little conflict between the characters, because later on, General Aso is the main person who's saying we need to use Baby Godzilla as a lure to lure in Godzilla so they can use the main plan, which of course upsets Professor Azusa and also upsets Mickey to a certain extent. And this later leads to a conflict, and everyone says they shouldn't do it, but they end up doing it. Of course, this leads to a collision between man and machine. As the movie states at the end, it's mainly about life versus artificial life, and to me that's a great theme, and one that definitely would be carried on in later Godzilla films, namely the Kiru films. So, like I said, the human aspect is done really well in this movie. Now, let's get to the freaking monsters. The monsters, which are a lot in this movie. I guess let's start about MechaGodzilla. Because this version is so different from the Showa era, where he was a creation of aliens. Design was meant to look threatening. And, yeah, and this version, however, is very different. And you could see that just from looking at it. It has this nice. Well, first off, MechaGodzilla looks freaking great. Although to me Kira would surpass this one as far as how looks go, I still really like this version. Don't get me wrong, this version is fantastic. It definitely is modeled after the Showa era, whereas Akira was just straight up looking at Godzilla. This looks a lot like the Showa era MechaGodzilla, only smoothed down. Of course, it was also made to look a lot like the Heisei era Godzilla, so it's thicker, not as slim. And yeah, it looks great, although some question the need of the arms. The arms do serve a purpose, although they're not used for actual fighting. Although when you think about it, they definitely could, but the movie didn't really have a need for that since Mechagodzilla is kind of a long-range fighter, basically. And of course, the Mechagodzilla roar was great. I loved it. It's freaking amazing. Mechagodzilla looks awesome. Of course, the main point of how he's different, though, this time and for the rest of the franchise, he'd be created by man. Of course, MechaGodzilla here has a great origin because it ties it together with Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. He's created by the wreckage of Mecha King Ghidorah. Humans, the UNGCC, salvages Mecha King Ghidorah's severed head from the ocean, and then they study